Blog Talk Radio.
I had to bring Mom in on this one.
Anybody grateful for God's blood?
Tell them about it, Mom.
Oh, the blood that saved me, the blood that raised me, the blood that healed me.
Yes. Listen.
Thank you for the blood.
The blood that saved my life.
And thank you for the lamb.
Thank you for the lamb.
Oh, the lamb that was sacrificed.
Good morning, everyone. You're listening to the Queen of Show Talk, Angela Butler. Today, the interview is Mr. Chance Lynch. Mr. Chance Lynch is representing Mr. Christopher Shaw, who is from Mr. Christopher Shaw is from Beaumont, Texas. Their attorney here, Mr. Chance Lynch, is from North Carolina. How are you doing this afternoon, Mr. Lynch?
Good morning, Ms. Butler. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's really an honor to be with you and your guests and all of your viewers and listeners.
It's an honor to have you on the Queen of Show Talk, Angela Butler. So I'm trying to dive right into it. Back in 2020, I believe it was June of 2020, the Mr. Christopher Shaw was paralyzed. Would you like to? I've read the lawsuit that's been filed. It's horrible. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you that right now. It's horrible. It's horrible that this keeps happening to black men and black women, but especially black men. It's horrible. June 12, 2020, if I'm not mistaken, is when it happened. Okay, I was reading the after the complaint, and it says on June 12, 2020. Okay.
And so what we have, you're right. You're right. It's a horrible incident. It's a horrible incident. That this is a young man, Christopher Shaw, who's from Beaumont, Texas, an able-bodied man, and he was arrested for public intoxication. And and what happened was he
needed medical attention. He wasn't necessarily intoxicated.
Well, he was intoxicated with an unknown substance. We're not sure, but he did need medical assistance. And that's why the police came. The police came. When the police got there, he was in the roadway needing medical attention. They arrested him for public intoxication. And Ms. Butler, the reason that people will be arrested for public intoxication is not just to prevent them from hurting others, but mostly to prevent them from hurting themselves. And so when he was arrested, his hands were placed behind his back, handcuffed. And when his hands were placed behind his back, he was transported to Baptist Hospital. At Baptist Hospital, they did a check because Beaumont is only just a few miles from where Sandra Bland was killed in jail, where she was found dead in her jail cell. And so they do what they call a Sandra Bland safety check. And Baptist Hospital cleared him. Even with him still being intoxicated with whatever substance he had in his system, Baptist Hospital cleared him to go to Jefferson County Jail. The arresting officer, James T. Gillen, took him over to Jefferson County Jail, and when he got out of the car and took him inside the bookend, there were 3 officers that were helping him. Mr. Shaw was placed up against a wall, a half-glass wall, and there was an officer on each side of Mr. Shaw and in front of him. The arresting officer was walking about, and he had some object in his hand. Well, at some point you can see on the surveillance video footage, threw what he was holding in his hand across the room. And when he threw it across the room, he reached and grabbed Mr. Shaw out of the custody of those 3 deputies and correctional officers of the Jefferson County Jail. Now, mind you, at this point, Mr. Shaw is detained. His hands are cuffed behind his back. He's placed up against a wall. There are 3 officers that are surrounding him. He is no threat to those officers or to Officer Gillen. He is no threat to anyone in that vicinity. But Officer Gillen threw what he had in his hands and snatched him out of the custody, flipped him over on his head. And when he flipped him over on his head, he landed on the concrete floor. There was a laceration.
Oh, my God.
I mean, to see the video is completely disturbing. That's why we're fighting for accountability and transparency. We want the video released so that people can see what this officer did to Chris Shaw. And when he flipped him over, mind you, his hands are still cuffed behind his back. So it was no way that Mr. Shaw could brace himself. He made a direct impact. His head, he landed head first on that concrete floor. Now, the officer landed on top of him. And while the officer got up from the floor, Mr. Shaw laid there. And I'm going to be honest with you, Ms. Butler, when I watched that video, it looked like Mr. Shaw died. His body goes completely limp. He looks unconscious for I don't know how many seconds, if not minutes. He comes to, there's a laceration on his head, and he's bleeding on the floor. They call the ambulance. The ambulance come in, and they put him on the gurney, and they take him right back to Baptist Hospital. And when they get to Baptist Hospital, the officer who assaulted Mr. Shaw is the one who's speaking for him. After a very, very short evaluation, Mr. Shaw is released by Baptist Hospital. They say that there's nothing wrong with him, that he's fine. So
after all that, they say he's fine.
After all that, they say that he's fine. They put him back into the police vehicle, transport him back to Jefferson County Jail. But this time, the first time Mr. Shaw was able to walk in, before this happened, before Gillen did this to him, Mr. Shaw was able to walk in. He was able to use all of his extremities. But this time when he left Baptist Hospital, when he got back to Jefferson County Jail, they had to put him in a wheelchair. And another officer came to assist Officer Gillen. And that officer had to lift up Chris Shaw's legs so his legs wouldn't drag the ground. He was sitting in an unusual, bizarre posture. When they rolled him into the bookend area at this point, he's sitting completely slouched and slumped in his chair, abnormal to how anyone else would sit in the chair, unable to use his extremity. And Jefferson County Jail correctional officers had to literally hold Mr. Shaw up to dress him out because he could not stand or control any of his limbs. They take him into a cell. They put him on a bed in the cell. He literally slides off of the bed into the floor, and he lays there. And he's telling them that he can't move, that he cannot move his legs. He needs help, and he begged the nurse for help. And she looked at him and said, "I'm not going to help you until you help yourself."
But he's hurting. He could be dying. I mean,
he's paralyzed. He cannot move. He laid there so long that he used the restroom on himself.
20 hours.
He laid there at least 18 to 24 hours.
18 to 24 hours.
In his own urine and feces. And they would not help him, and his breathing became labored. And Mr. Shaw recalls that he looked at that same nurse and said, "I'm not going to help you until you help yourself." And he told her, he says, "Lady, I'm going to die on your watch. I'm going to die." And she eventually called the ambulance. The ambulance came, and they did a check on him immediately when they came in the cell. And they said, "We got to get him out of here and get him to the hospital." They loaded him up on the gurney and got him over to St. Christopher's Hospital. And after they examined him, they found out that his spine had been severed in several places, and that he went into immediate emergency surgery. He's had several surgeries after he arrived at St. Christopher's, and he was determined to be paralyzed from his chest down. Now, he has not had adequate medical treatment. He doesn't have the support that You can imagine how his life has changed. 40, 41, 42 years old, a daughter, a grandchild. His grandchild was born after he was paralyzed, hadn't been able to run with his grandchild or be able to hold his grandchild as all other grandparents would. He has little movement in his arms because of the nerve damage and the severity of this injury. His arms are almost inoperable. He needs help to do the basic things, eating and drinking and having to bathe and get dressed. He can't get in and out of a car. He can't walk. He can't stand without help. I mean, this man's life, he's been robbed of his life because of the charge of public intoxication. And what Beaumont Police did, what Gillen did after this, was after he was already admitted and taken to the hospital, he came back and did a charge for an assault on an officer, which is a felony in Texas, saying that Mr. Shaw kicked him and he felt pain. But at no point in the video do we see where Mr. Shaw made any contact with Gillen. We didn't see where he touched him. But he came back, and we believe it's just retaliatory. That charge that he's facing now, that could send him away to prison for many years, is just retaliatory.
They're trying to send him to prison also.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Are you saying they're trying to send Mr. Christopher Shaw to prison also?
Yes, they've charged him with, that's exactly right. They've charged him with assault on a government official or a peace officer, which is a felony in Texas, and if convicted could really warrant him many years in prison. So, I mean, it's retaliatory. We submit that Mr. Shaw, we never saw Mr. Shaw make contact with that officer. But yet that officers claim that he did. But we see on the surveillance camera where he goes all around the jail, walking just fine. He takes Mr. Shaw to the hospital. The officer didn't get treated for anything. He didn't make any reports that we know of him having any pain. But later, after Mr. Shaw is taken to the hospital, we learned that he's now being charged with assault on a peace officer.
Okay, so this is made the Washington Post among other news outlets. This is made the Washington Post, sir.
That's right. Yahoo News has covered it. Washington Post has covered it. It is a national story.
Yes, this is a national story. So how's Mr. Shaw doing?
So, as well as you can expect. He's a young man who is gravely paralyzed, and his mobility has been completely limited because of this. And so he does not have a lot of support. He's unable to work. He did not have adequate health care insurance. His ability to be able to receive physical therapy and proper medical treatment since this has happened has been extremely limited. It's almost been non-existent until just recently, where he's able to get some, that's still limited, but at least some medical support. His life has changed. His quality of life has been completely diminished.
The NAACP, the Beaumont chapter, is now in on this. I see.
They've had an interest from the beginning. When we went out on last year and met with them, they've had an interest. The 100 Black Men of Beaumont, they have an interest as well. We also have an interest from Dr. William Barber, who is the Poor People's Campaign president. He has tweeted he's standing in solidarity with us. The Rainbow Coalition with the Reverend Jesse Jackson and his local officers and state officers have joined in us and stand in solidarity with us as well. There are a number of organizations who are rallying behind us to bring attention to this, because this is not the first time that Beaumont Police has done such. I mean, last year when we went to Beaumont, we saw a video of a Beaumont police officer that threw a young person down on the sidewalk, placed their knee on the back of their head. And there was another officer who was telling people to get back. And one of the statements that he told the civilians who were there just watching, who weren't causing a scene or being irate, but watching, he told them, get back. He said, this is Beaumont, Texas. You ain't got no rights. That's on video. He says, you are in Beaumont, Texas. You ain't got no rights.
Oh, have mercy.
And so this is the mentality that this city has had. This is the mentality of this police department. The same chief who saw this footage, but yet said he stand by his man.
Now, Mr. Gillian, along with 3 other attorneys, which is not just you, there's 3 other attorneys working with you.
On my team. That
yes, on your team.
Right. Harry Daniels from Atlanta, Georgia. Shamika White from High Point, North Carolina. Demetria Howard Watkins is our local counsel out of Dallas, Texas, and Frisco area. And then Mr. Shaw also has a criminal defense attorney.
Okay. So they're trying to send this man to prison, and they've abused him, paralyzed him, treated him like an animal.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. That's the summation of it, Ms. Butler. They have done all of this. They've changed his life completely.
Okay.
And now they're trying to pursue and do what they can to have him convicted.
That's horrible. This is atrocity. It's horrible. It's horrible. Mr. Attorney Chase Lynch. I have the Chance. I'm sorry, Attorney Chance Lynch. I apologize again to you, sir. I do apologize for misusing your name. Attorney Chance Lynch. In your opinion, these areas down there in Texas, in the other places like these in America, do you believe? I've asked Mr. Ricky Jason this. Now I'm asking you. Do you believe these areas should be closed and the black people compensated, immensely very well compensated, so they can relocate from there? And these places should be closed, like Beaumont, Texas, Jasper, Texas, Lumber, Texas, I believe it was. Should the federal government close these places?
Well, I don't think that it's about location entirely. I think that it's about a mindset that's in our country. The mindset in our country is not just about economic status or rural areas. The mindset that this country has, sadly, that goes all over the country. And I'll say this is because Mr. Daniels and I, we represented a young man in Washington, D.C., who was detained by the police, and then there was another police officer who came and felt like he deserved to give him 9 blows without him being able to defend himself.
Yes, sir, I understand. Understand. But I have, wait, Attorney Chance Lynch. What I'm saying is there are numerous cases in these little areas that are not far from Jasper, Texas, where Mr. James Byrd Jr. was chained and dragged in a truck. The 2 men were executed, but there's Miss Bobby Brown, her father, in Beaumont, Texas. There's another lady whose son there in LaBurnton, I think it's LaBurnton, Texas. LaBurnton. She has no representation. Her son was dead in 2009, and they hog-tied him. Mm-hmm. She had her own autopsy did. of course, the police autopsy found that they weren't at fault, but her autopsy says they are at fault.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she has no representation this way back in 2009, 2010. I mean, these places need to be closed, sir.
Well, you asked me my opinion.
Like that.
You asked me
in that little area that's going on like that within 30 minutes, 45 miles of Jasper, Texas. The southeast Texas does not sound like a good area for black people to live to me.
Yeah, well, you asked me my opinion, Ms. Butler. And my opinion is I'm not certain how closing an area is going to rid the mentality of racism and prejudice in this country. I mean, you have your opinion, I've got mine. And
yes, sir.
I come from where I'm born and reared is in rural North Carolina. It's one of the poorest counties in North Carolina. When I went to college, they still had outhouses. And in this one county, they have 3 school systems. And so what I'm saying to you is racism is, I mean, it is prevalent and it is alive. In some areas, it's more sophisticated, but it's still very, very, very much alive.
All right, sir. So you're suing Core Health. You're suing Mr. Christopher Shaw, and Mr. Chase Lynch, Attorney Chase Lynch, and your co-counsels are suing Core Health, also the officer and the town, the city.
We're suing the officer, James Gillen. We're suing the city of Beaumont because the police department is a subsidiary and department of the city. We're also suing Jane Doe and John Doe 1 through 10 of the jail. And we're also suing Jane Doe and John Doe of Core, and we're suing Core Health because they have failed to give Mr. Shaw the adequate medical attention that he deserved and needed while he was in custody.
Okay, Mr. Christopher Shaw, I'm looking at it's in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Texas Beaumont Division, civil action. You're suing versus Christopher Shaw plaintiff versus James Thomas Gillian in his individual capacity, City of Beaumont, Texas, and Jefferson County Sheriff's Officers, deputies Jane and John Doe 1 through 10 in their official capacity, Core Health LLC and Core Health LLC's employees Jane and John Doe 1 through 10 in their official capacity.
That's right.
Okay. Well, this is making national news. This is making world news, as a matter of fact. I don't know if you realize it, but a lot of people have picked this story up they just posted something, the Washington Post, in the last hour.
We understand that this is getting a lot of traction, as we hope that it will. It deserves all the traction that it can get. This story, it shows the conscience of America and where we are, especially as it pertains to the treatment of blacks in America by those who have taken the oath to protect them.
Yes, the Washington Post just uploaded it to the internet. The Washington Post did 1 hour ago. Also, 12 News Now, KLTV. It's just it's in fine law. It's in case law now. It's in APN News. It's in PRN News. It's going there. There are pictures and videos all over the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So we're grateful for the attention that it's getting because we
I hope I was able to help some too. I really do.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be on your show, and thank you for covering it. We hope that your listeners are able to follow this and to raise attention in their area to the Chris Shaw case because We look to do all we can to ameliorate Beaumont, Texas, and just make it better, and to stop this systemic prejudice that is against African Americans in that area. It's essential. And so because of people like you, your interest and your leadership, it's essential, and we're grateful that we're able to do what we do because you help us by covering. Yes, sir. I'm trying to give as much press as I can. I'm internet. I'm not television. But I've been placing these interviews everywhere and really promoting them. And I'll do the same with your interview. I have other interviews coming up too. Mr. Attorney Chance Lynch. Attorney Chance Lynch. I have other cases, other shows coming up with people with cases. Mr. James Brown cousin, Miss Sandra. Like I said, Miss Sandra, everyone, her son was killed by police officers back in 2009. She'll be on. So we have quite a show about Beaumont, Texas, and we have Mr. James Brown cousin. Miss Sandra Leday will be on. Her son was killed in Lumberton, Texas. Police lost the tapes. Her autopsy shows that her son died because of the police, not because of no PCP. I don't believe he's first on PCP, to be honest. Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, I don't. So I'm interviewing her, and I'm also interviewing Miss Bobby Brown. Her son is a legendary Mr. Boy Brown, who's a DJ, and he's James Brown cousin. We'll be interviewing them. So we've got quite a few shows about Southeast Texas. I did one the other day with Mr. Ricky Jason. Now Mr. Lynch. How can people help Mr. Christopher Shaw?
That's an important question. I'm so glad that you asked me. I think that there are a number of ways, and one of the ways is reaching out to the DA's office and asking them to release that video. To the sheriff's office, asking the sheriff to release that video, to make those inquiries. And we understand that there's going to be a number of activists who want to push that, and just joining those organizations, reaching out to those leaders, asking what events are they holding, what can they be a part of. That's how they can help.
And release the video. More than anything else, release the video. Release the video. Release the video.
If they did nothing wrong, what are they hiding? Release the video.
This is gaining more attention. This case has become a national case. I don't know if it will become a worldwide case, but it definitely has become a national case. It's all over the Washington Post, among APR, and many others are covering this. It's no longer just in Beaumont, Texas, being covered by the local media. There's been marches there. Activists have marched for Mr. Christopher Shaw. They've marched for him.
That's right. We marched. We did that for him, and we hope to continue to do everything that we can to bring attention to this.
NAACP lawyers to march in support of Mr. Christopher Shaw. I mean, this is beyond Beaumont, Texas. This is went national. It's even on YouTube. It's on 12 News Now. It's on KDF. It's everywhere, sir. This case is everywhere. I'm telling you this so Mr. Christopher Shaw would know it.
Absolutely.
And so Mr. Shaw would know it, that he's not forgotten, and that people won't forget him, just like they did not forget Mr. James Byrd Jr. No one will forget him either. I hope he can walk again one day. I hope that's in God's will. I don't know why Mr. Gillian did this to this gentleman, Mr. Christopher Shaw. All I can say is racism. It was nearly murder.
He's living, but he murdered the quality of his life. He took it from him.
Yes, sir. He murdered the quality of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And this was an able-bodied black man who went to work. Gainfully employed.
Mm-hmm. Gainfully employed with a family. And this is what he did, and yet the police chief says that he stands by his guy.
He stands by him.
Mm-hmm. He stands by him.
The police chief should be fired.
I think this is the question the community should be asking their council, should be asking their city manager. Why do we still have a police chief who consistently stands behind officers who break the law?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What police chief does that?
This is what they've always did. It's just now because of the internet and because of 24-hour news cable that everybody can know about it. Everybody knows about it now. These cases are no longer a secret. In these small little rural towns in the South, it's no longer a secret. It's no longer a secret. Southeast Texas, Jasper, Texas, LaBurnton, Texas, have a history of doing this, sir.
Mm-hmm. They have a rich history of doing it and being okay with it, and that's why them doing it in the past and no one holding them accountable and asking these questions to them validates their misbehavior. They've done this. It hadn't been an issue before. They haven't been held accountable before, so why not continue? That has to stop, Ms. Butler. It has to stop, and we're hoping to bring that attention so we can make it stop with Christopher Shaw.
Yes, sir. It has to stop. It has to stop. You have to stop brutalizing and killing black people, black men, black women, black children. You just have to stop. You just have to stop killing us and paralyzing us. Like they said with Mr. George Floyd, get your foot off my neck. It has to stop. Right. This cannot continue. This cannot continue. This is no way for people to live in America. People saying we have as much right to be here as anybody else. I agree with that. But there are some places which have a long, rich history of abuse and murder, and there are too many black people in those graves. There's too many black people in prison. There's too many black people on out of school suspension. It's too much. And some areas are much worse than others. In my opinion, these are the areas that should be closed.
Mm-hmm.
And the black people compensated by the federal government. Because places like Jasper, Texas, Beaumont, Texas, LaBurnton, Texas, all are within 30 to 45 minutes of Jasper, Texas. And Mr.
Right.
Ricky Jason was on the show, and he agreed with me that these people should be compensated and those places closed. They need to be made to relocate. I don't know if that's a violation of the rights or not, but somebody, if they want to move, they should be compensated by the federal government.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not opposed to that. I think that the option to always have a better life is important. I think that this country owes that to those to people of color who are mistreated because of what they look like. Still worry about the mindset of this country that as that type of mindset infiltrate areas that are more popular, that you would think that it doesn't exist. It doesn't have that type of racism and prejudice. But the reality of it is, I go all over this country, and I see it all the time. I see it every day. And so there's still a great work that has to be done. And I think that it starts in generations. I believe that it starts with us pursuing pursuing the education of racism and what systemic racism looks like and all of that. I think that's important so that our children's children are able to see it so that they can make it better. Because racism is passed on to generation. You weren't born to hate what someone looks like. That's you're not born to do that. That's not what happens.
You're taught that.
You're taught racism. You're taught it. I was taught at a young age to that the reason I was being whooped by my grandmother was so the white man wouldn't beat me and the white woman wouldn't beat me. So I understand that. I was taught not to break the law because horrible things would happen. I was told not to go to certain events, certain things, because when people get intoxicated or they're on drugs or something, even my high school graduation, if something had happened, they might have would have killed me or something. You know, I was taught those things.
Right.
And where I live at, it hasn't been proven.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been proven, but this was where I live at is a known racist area.
Right.
You know, they have a black female mayor. So thank you, Mr. Attorney Chance Lynch, for coming on the Queen of Show Talk, Angela Butler. I'll be releasing this interview very, very soon for everyone to listen. It's gaining national traction. You heard what Attorney Chance Lynch said, what you could do to help Mr. Christopher Shaw. Repeat that, sir, please.
You can join the organizations that you see that have gained an interest in their events and whatever efforts that they organize. Reach out to them, join arms, reach out and write the sheriff and the district attorney asking them to release the video footage from the jail. The body camera footage, I understand, doesn't show anything, but the jail surveillance video, we've seen that, and that's what we want the world to see. We want the world to see how they treated Chris Shaw on June 12th, 2021. And this is so important. So we need all of the help that we can get. Mr. Shaw is grateful. I speak on behalf of him for all of the support, and we want to show our gratitude to you, Ms. Butler, for taking an interest in this, and we just appreciate your listeners.
I always have an interest when it comes to black people.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
I do interview governors, senators, and politicians, but I interview to help black people. I try to show black people in the most positive light possible, because it's the true light to show them. That's the truthful light to show them. The best possible light is who black people are. Best possible light is who they are. So thank you, Attorney Chance Lynch, for coming on the Queen of Show Talk, Angela Butler. I look forward to having you back, sir.
Thank you so much. It's my honor. I look forward to being back with you, and hopefully I'll have some more updates for you.
Yes, sir. I look forward to having you back. God bless you, sir.
God bless you and your work. Thank you.
Tell Mr. Christopher Shaw, God bless him, too.
I will. I will definitely relay that, and your listeners can reach me. My office is 980-800-6654. My firm name is Lynch Law, PLLC, Lynch Law. And again, that number is area code 980-800-6654. I'm happy if they've encountered some injustices that they'd like us to look into, then we're certainly happy to speak with them and see what we can do to help them as well.
Okay, you're out of North Carolina. What city, what town, or what city and state?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. All right, yes, sir. How long have you been an attorney?
I'm going on my 14th year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You sound young. You sound younger.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, I'm young enough to relate and old enough to know better.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming on the Queen of Show Talk, Angela Butler.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, everyone. You've been listening to the Queen of Show Talk, Angela Butler, with Mr. Attorney Chance Lynch. He is representing Mr. Christopher Shaw. They are suing the city of Beaumont, Texas. They're suing Officer Gillian. They're suing Core Health LLC because this, according to the complaint that they filed that I've been reading, the city of Beaumont, Texas is complicit with this. They don't do anything about it. The people in charge do not, I guess on their city councils and things like that, the mayor and people like that, I guess they're not, they don't do anything about it. When things happen, it's silent, and they stay silent. and these things happen. So when you stay silent, it's like a go-ahead to keep doing it. So that's why the city is being sued. You're listening to the Queen of Show Talk, Angela Butler. Oh, and I'm not sure what the population of Beaumont, Texas is, but I believe people should be compensated if they want to move. If they don't close the town, at least compensate people. The federal government can set up some kind of fund or something, some kind of fund where people black people want to relocate, they could. You get what I'm saying? They don't close, at least set up a fund. Or something. I mean, the population is 117,321 people in Beaumont, Texas. It's in southeastern Texas. But what I'm saying is throughout America, this is happening. So I believe I understand the attorney said this is prevalent throughout America, racism is. But there are some places worse than others. And I believe if black people who can't afford to move or who want to move and they want to leave those type of areas, they should be federal government should set up some kind of fund where they can relocate themselves if it's no more than $250,000 each, $300,000 each. That's what I believe. That's my opinion. All right, everyone, you listen to the Queen of Show Talk, Angela Butler. Thank you for listening to my interview with attorney Chance Lynch.